So we are recording, and I will then say, that's not what I want. There it goes. Okay. And I know Elizabeth Kiker, our vice chair, is trying to join us, and she had issues with a meeting last time. So I will say good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Advisory Committee on Transportation Choices for our March 2nd, 2022 meeting. This meeting is currently being done over Microsoft Teams per the interpretation of Arlington County government that we are permitted to do so. And as chair, I will say we'll continue to do so as long as we are allowed to. It is being recorded, so please act as you would want your grandkids to remember you by. Elizabeth says she's here. Yay. Okay. So by way of introductions here, so if you will be kind enough to throw your name, and I see some people in the chat already. Thank you. Thank you, Harbor, Hassel. Ms. Kiker is here. She's our vice chair. Mr. Mickelweiss, thank you. And so close
hey,
that
Josh,
part. Yes.
It's Dave McBride. My chat's not loading, so.
Okay.
Sorry.
So Dave, just so we'll have the record. So if you want to just say Dave McBride, and you're here as, what's your role?
Principal at Kenmore Middle School.
Wonderful. Janet, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Janet Valenzuela, and I'm a parent leader, community advocate on the south side of Arlington, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yay. Valerie, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, Valerie Mosley. I'll turn on my camera as well. I was just about to write this in the chat. Hi, I'm Valerie Mosley. I'm the Bureau Chief of Transportation Planning, Capital Projects Management, and the Transportation Division with Arlington. Nice to see you all.
Thank you. Let me go down my list of who else. And let's see here. John Mickelweiss, you put yourself in the chat.
I report to the APS board through its audit committee, and I'm an APS commuter.
Thank you. If I get Wei and then John Carden, and then we'll go Mr. Pretty and Mr. Jones.
Hi, good evening. Hui Wang here, Arlington County Transportation Engineering and Operations.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name's John Carton. I represent the Transit Advisory Committee on this committee. I'm chair of the Transit Advisory Committee here in Arlington.
Hey, this is Dave Pretty. I'm the liaison for the ACTC for the school board, and I am currently driving, so my kid's around, so that's why my camera's off tonight, but it's nice to be here.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, Ms. Garvey, and then I'll go back to my top. We have Andrew as the guest, and then Dennis Leach and Ms. Harbor.
Good evening. William Jones, Transit Services Manager with Arlington County and the Transit Bureau.
Want me to go next?
Sure.
Yep, Libby Garvey, and I'm the County Board Liaison to the JCTC. Nice to see everybody. And I'll probably turn my camera off, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Let's see here. Dennis, Elizabeth, Jillian, and Ms. Harbor, and then.
Good evening, Dennis Leach, Director of Transportation, Arlington. Happy to be here.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to introduce myself.
No, we're going up.
Hey, Jillian Burgess. I think I'm the representative of the Bicycle Advisory Committee.
Hi, Elizabeth Kiker, Vice Chair of ACTC.
Hi, good evening. I'm Renee Harbor, Assistant Superintendent, Facilities and Operations, Arlington.
Thank you. And did I miss any? Who did I miss, if if anyone.
I think just me, Lauren Hassel,
Okay, Lauren.
Safe Routes to School Coordinator with APS.
Thank you all.
And I think, I'm
so-
sorry, I think Andrew.
Yeah, and now,
Okay.
Renee can introduce our guest.
Andrew Spencer, Director of Transportation, Arlington Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. And thank you all. We all are a team effort to make this work. So I appreciate all you. I also appreciate the fact that even people who are employed for APS or Arlington County, we are all volunteering our time. And so I want to respect all of that. First thing up was our final report. And I think we had Jillian, you had I think a couple pieces of language that you wanted to offer to it that I think you sent out to everyone. And if anyone had any other comments to add to it, otherwise I'd like to approve that. And then we'll put it, Lauren and I can put it together in one document and send it off. Keeping in mind, this was the document we were supposed to do for the close of last year and your chair slipped. So. So hearing nothing on that, if I can get
I'll move the adoption of this report.
Thank you. Second. Jillian, can you second your own?
Yeah, I just can't find mute. Yes, I second.
Okay.
Thank you.
So all in favor, if you could either type yes in the chat or give a thumbs up or just say aye in any of the ways that will give us a record on this.
Aye.
And I will say aye on mine because I had the same chat issue. It seems like, oh, there goes mine. Okay. So thank you all for that. So I believe that passes. And right at 7:10. Oh, we also needed to approve the January minutes. For the January minutes.
I'll move the adoption of January minutes.
There you go, sweetie.
Thank you. I heard, because I heard no feedback on the January minutes. Thank you, Lauren, for your extraordinary effort on that. All in favor of the minutes? If we can say aye, say yes, or type in the chat.
Sure.
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Transportation policy and PIP revision feedback. Jillian, can you take this one?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to Kristen, who I think did a lot of hard work to bring these up to modern standards. I think a lot of the revisions added clarity to what was there before, which is great. John and I looked at it, and we actually talked today about it for those who were on emails earlier before we talked. There are some areas where we have sort of more specific feedback about things that can be clarified, things that maybe aren't addressed, but and I'm happy to send that out to the group, and then that can be sent on to whoever is taking the lead on updating these. But we had some, big picture things that we wanted to talk about. The main ones are these policies and PIPs, even though they say they are for transportation, right now there's very little in there that's not about school buses. So there's nothing about walking, biking, or transit, and there's a little bit, but very little about private cars. So I think that it makes sense to address all transportation together. It actually doesn't need a lot more to address these other things, but I do think, and Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think Safe Routes to Schools is under the Office of Transportation Services. And so, thinking of transportation in aggregate would benefit the school system. Along with that, there are no goals for transportation set out in the policy. And even though the policy actually does talk about monitoring performance with respect to there are no goals. And so I think the policy should lay out what the goals are overall. Those goals should be holistic in talking about transportation. And I had some specific thoughts on what they could be. I don't know if we want to set out time to talk specifically about that now, or
I think so.
At some point, but
yeah, if there's time, yeah.
Okay. So here, let me go through the high level stuff because I think there's two things to talk about. The other thing that's really missing are standards for the Hub Stop program. It just has very little. It just says for option schools, Hub Stops will be centralized. And distances for Hub Stops can be farther, but there actually isn't a lot. There isn't a lot there. And I think we've all known, I think we've touched on this a little bit this year, that the Hub Stop program, while promising, has seen some pain points. And so having some standards for Hub Stops in the policies and the PIPs would actually, I think it would facilitate the public conversation about this. Opting out of transportation. There's something about SPED opting out of transportation, but not families in general education being able to opt out of school bus transportation. Let's see. Also, when we're talking about school provided vehicles, there's a lot of talk about school buses. And I think what we mean, and this is probably an easy clarification, is any school provided vehicles, because I think there are some times where the school provided vehicle isn't a school bus. Yeah, so those are the big ones.
Okay.
So
and the other one that I think has come up, the last one that has come up here a lot, which I think is specific to the PIP about SPED, is there isn't any talk of mainstreaming or integration of special ed kids into general transportation. I think just like one line, we've had representatives of the special ed PTA of SEPTA come here multiple times to talk about how there's opportunities there for more integration in transportation.
All right. Was that your last one, or do you have a little bit more on that?
Yeah, that was the last big one. And so I think the two things to talk about would be the goals and the Hub Stops.
So we could approach this in a couple ways, because we asked the committee of our subcommittee of our committee to go through this and become the experts and offer back the opinions. And I think the first thing I would like to do from our committee is to say, is there any discussion, because ultimately my vision on this would be that from a high level, if we said we like these policies, but these are the opportunities that we believe should be further explored. So I want to start with, I'm going to start with a motion, or see if you want to make actually it'd be better if you made a motion here that said that we offer the PIPs, or that we offer the commentary of that we reviewed the PIPs and here are the opportunities ACTC believes should be further addressed, and then have a discussion from there. Because if no one has a problem with it, writing up what you wrote and sending that forward on behalf of ACTC would be appropriate. So did you want to make a motion that said you'd like to bring forward these opportunities as our feedback from ACTC?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. So what we'll do is Jillian went, and she and John did a thorough reading over of these PIPs, and I thank you all again for more unpaid time for doing this work. Is there anyone from our committee who has any comments, thoughts, adjustments to the suggestions brought forth by Jillian, because everything she said is everything that this committee has been talking about over the years, making standards to hub stops, looking for opportunities for special ed to be integrated, thinking about vehicles other than school buses for transportation. Some of these things go back like years in different school boards. So let me open it up to the group. You can either turn your camera on, raise your hand, or if you can't do any of those, just say me, and then we'll take some discussion. It's also possible there is no discussion. Jillian, I thank you and John for this work, so we need to take a vote on this. The vote would be all in favor of putting forward our review as described by Jillian of the subcommittee's work. Please either type in the chat aye, turn your camera on and give a thumbs up, or just say aye.
So for the goals and the hub stop stuff, do we want to do that separate? Do we want to just have it say it should include goals and hub stop? That's one vote.
No, I think we'll put it all as one. Vote. It's all
okay,
one because these are opportunities you think should be addressed in further PIPs. That's our commentary.
Should we talk about what we think the goals should be?
Well, I've opened this for a vote. Now we could make a second document. We could start talking about what we think hub stops should be, because that might be a different.
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
So I'm going to say aye as well. So we have Elizabeth, aye. Others of the committee?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, Alistair.
Aye, Janet.
All right, well, that motion passes. So we've got about 10 minutes here before we go to the next thing. And, of course, if we can get a little bit ahead of schedule, I won't complain. But Jillian, we could discuss what we think hub stops should have. Do you have any ideas what you'd like to see in that? Have you had thought on that yet? Or
for hub stops, and I confess my kids go to an option school, so I've been talking to parents about hub stops for a while and monitoring the online chatter, talking to people from other option schools on this one. How many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from those discussions, there were 6 things that people seem to converge around. One is generally, and these are meant to be general principles, unlike the bus eligibility zones, which are more hard lines, but general principles. Hub stops should be located within every area bounded by no cross roads. In other words, students would not be required to cross no cross roads. We have a map of that online. With the exception that in single family neighborhoods, so in the less dense areas of the county, those areas, a certain number of those areas may share a hub stop. And so, I think 4 is the right number, having looked at a map, but I think that one is also will need some clarification. And I posted in the chat the link to what the no cross streets are, because it makes a little more sense when you're looking at the map, how there's like polygons created by those no cross streets. There's already something in the PIP about, like, in general, all stops are designed to have at least 5 children. I think there should also be a max. So hub stops with more than 20 students, I think 20 is the right sort of maximum just for crowd control, to be broken into multiple stops. And so there are more hub stops in denser areas of the county.
Well, I would
hub
say
stops should
on
not
that
be located. Yeah.
One thing I'll give you feedback on that, because I live on the south side, that we have outside my apartment what we call single stop routes. Is a bus picks up 70 kids.
Yeah.
In stop. And so I don't know, a lot of this we should ask, unless the phrasing I think we should add to a lot of this is unless not reasonably possible. Because
Right.
we don't want to.
I
It's
think
just
that unless not reasonable possible. Yeah, I think that applies to everything.
I
be
just want
honest.
to jump in. I same thought about that, but I think we're talking about, I'm sorry if I missed something, Jillian. We're talking about choice schools. And so the ones that near my house are similar, you're talking about where the whole bus fills up in one stop are not the choice schools.
right. Yes. We also have to be careful that if we try to align between the two, that we just, we don't want to open another can of worms to, the single stop schools now saying, hey, wait a minute, now we want 2 stops because why do they get 2 stops? And just, I don't want to open up a can of worms. So go on to the other stuff
Right.
you had.
I do think that the single stop schools, the single route stops are all located at multifamily buildings. So some single family may also go to those stops, but there's a multifamily building involved. Okay, so hub stops. One, hub stops should not be located within a block of other schools' entrances. This was a really big problem in that the theory behind hub stops was we would put it on land that we can control, which is county land and schools where, we control the land. But, and they tried to take into account the bell times, but what they didn't realize is that there's activity at school buildings before and after the bell times. There are, early morning recess for elementary schools. Teachers have to get there. There are teachers that come and leave. There are 0 periods, and some, high school and secondary students do career center or do special things. So they're coming late, and it's actually a fair amount of activity. And what was happening for a lot of the stops that were very close to other schools is the hub stop traffic made the traffic to the school worse, and the school's traffic may cause delays in the hub stops routing. And so I know a few were already moved, and there's some that are still having problems. And again, this is like unless not reasonably possible. This is a first principle.
So because I'm watching the time on this and I see Alistair's got his hand up as well. What I was going to suggest to this is let's take a little bit of feedback here, and then if you want to maybe think about a set of proposals and send it around, and we'll put some time in the May meeting, because nothing's going to change between now and September anyway, or August.
Well, when do they do routing though? As long as they're not doing routing before May, that's fine.
Yeah, and even no matter what we put forward is going to take some time to be considered anyhow. You're not going to. Alistair, what would you want to add to this?
Yes, I wanted to add that Jillian brings up a great point that a lot of these buses fill up quickly on one stop because they're outside a multifamily home. And Lauren, if I may ask, you said that you live near a bus stop that fills up quickly. What bus stop is that? And because what I remember when I went to, school not too long ago, there were certain stops that filled up and they were outside multifamily homes. And the other thing is that you could also conceivably, work the system in order to maximize buses and maximize the efficiency of these routes. And so it's definitely something that I recommend that we look closer at.
The conversations about the hub stop is an idea that's been, introduced. What was it? Been 4 or 5 years now?
I think so.
And so, it's a refining process. So I'm glad to see we're continuing on it. So Jillian, could you, it's in the chat, but would you be willing to write it up for us as a like a Google Doc thing? And
Oh
we'll
yeah,
send
I
that?
have an email ready to go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
I
we'll
have
put
I
this
have an email
on-
ready to go. So
Okay, thanks.
and then the other thing was the goals of the policy. I also put that in the chat. Also happy to send that around with everything else. This is pretty simple, by the way.
Yeah.
But you know, the one thing that isn't addressed by these goals is the concept that basically kids shouldn't sit on the bus forever, which is one of the goals that I think we all agree on. It is sort of addressed by the minimized number of private cars, because we don't want the duration of school bus trips to then lead to private car trips. But that's not
Maybe
exactly
something
it.
to
So
the quality of the I don't know if like the phrasing that the quality of the ride. We could describe quality. When I say quality, I don't mean like it's leather seats versus the plastic. I mean the quality of the ride, meaning time of pickup, duration of trip, etc., should incentivize the riding of the bus as opposed to private transportation.
yeah.
That might be a better way to encapsulate it. And if you want to again think about some language on that and send that one around too, we could discuss both of those. Hub stop priorities, our hub stop guidelines, and then some goals. I think that would be interesting.
Okay, I can do that, and then maybe we can just have more of a discussion both over email and at the May meeting as people feel inspired.
And Lauren, could you maybe coordinate? Could we coordinate with our new director of transportation to maybe get in on these offline conversations?
Sure.
So that we make, so that we're not writing down something that's going to make, my last thing I ever want to do is make staff's stomach turn just at the conversation of something. And so if we can make it pleasing to everyone before we even start, it's even better.
There you go. Will do.
Yeah.
And Ms. Harbour?
On the timing of these, Kristen was working on them, so I don't know what is going on now. Do we know about the timing of the policy and PIP stuff?
So we are still working on the policy. We did pick that work up, but Kristen did a heavy lift of the work. And so I actually was part of a conversation probably last week. That my weeks are starting to blend together after I crossed 30-day threshold yesterday. But we are working on those policies. And I sat on a group that actually was looking specifically at the special ed policy. I've also sat on one that was looking at the white fleet vehicle. So that's all part of the transportation PIP. So it's a very large document. So our goal is still to, I believe the timeline, and Mr. Pretty could correct me. I know this is something we are trying to get to the board. I know before June, so I don't want, so if I say that, I know I captured the time frame. So yeah, so this is something that we are continuing the work.
Well, thank you. And I believe this leads beautifully into the Bell Time study project, which is next. Do you have slides to do this?
I do not have slides. I am going to put something in the chat, and this is just a link that was part of an Engage conversation. I know it came out in one of the superintendent's messages, and I could not have paid Jillian to prepare such a smooth segue, and I appreciate Jillian actually is going to be part of the work. So thank you, Jillian, at that time. Lauren asked me to come to the committee, and thank you again for the invitation. As I said, I am new to the work. This is my 31st day, and it's been riveting. And one of the items on my to-do list from Dr. Mayo was to facilitate this conversation centered around reviewing our school bell times. This was last done in 1999. I was actually a teacher at that time in Arlington. And so we are beginning this conversation again. And Mr. Spencer, who joined us yesterday, so he's on day 2. So he came back. We clap every day they come back because he's on day 2, and he's bringing a wealth of knowledge from his recent work in Petersburg, but also in Richmond and Powhatan. So our study, again, is being conducted to review the school start times and end times, and also to look at the number of minutes in our instructional day. So we are considering if we can set a schedule in which we are proposing adding additional time to the instructional day to 10 minutes additional. But we really are looking at improving operational efficiencies and as well as streamlining the bus routes and schedules. So a lot of conversation around the hub stops. That is information that has been passed on to me. So that is conversation and concerns that have come to the community. And that is something we will consider as well as maximizing our instructional time. So currently we have 8 different start and end times for 42 schools and programs. And our goal really is to get to no more than 4. If we can get to 3, that would be phenomenal, but definitely no more than 4. And we're working with the vendor Transpar, who has been completing a comparative analysis of our instructional minutes to identify any needed changes that we actually can employ. And we are really looking to be the least disruptive as possible. So it's not the goal of the work to come in and create, a 45-minute difference in start time, and understanding that this is going to impact our entire APS community. So we are beginning our conversations. We have 2 stakeholder groups. We have our internal committee. So those are made up of our principals. We have members from transportation, including Mr. Spencer and others. We have some members from facilities and operations. We actually brought back Susan Robinson, who is a retired administrator, but she was part of the 1999 work. So bringing that historical perspective back in play so that we're not all totally recreating the wheel, and learning from and taking what they learned in that process and applying it to this process. And then we have our second group that's made up of our parents, Jillian and other members from advisory as well. I know I've gotten a couple of invitations, like, are you accepting more individuals to the advisory? Well, this is not really advisory. This is a team. This is a study team. No, but what we have found is that we do have representation from parents, PTA, and they're also connected to other advisories. So similar to the work, and I see a couple of you who are actually also part of the work that we do with the BLPC, that we take this information back to our stakeholder groups. We're also going to utilize the page that I shared with you to load our conversation. So our meetings will be recorded. We will upload any FAQs from the Engage information. I've gotten a little bit this time, and I'm sure once we kickstart it this Friday and the following Monday, we'll get more engagement and to share that with the general community. Finally, we are creating a survey that we're going to put out in the midst of this work. So not way before it, not way after it, in the midst of this work. So it can also inform and give us a more collective voice to the work. So I'm excited about it. It's like my first big project as far as being assistant superintendent. And I am really looking forward to sharing our progress with you, either personally or through Jillian. Are there any questions at this time?
So one question that's Joshua here. One question is, do you think you would have a preliminary report? Our next meeting is the first Wednesday in May. That's something you might be able to share with the group, perhaps the last week of April, that we could then read a little bit ahead of time to have a discussion in May? Is that, so I don't want to jam you up.
No, you're not. So actually, our goal is to have information ready to share with the school board on April 28th. So what I would say is that once we share that information with the school board, I'll be more than happy to share the information with the group.
That timing would actually be, that would be wonderful timing for us. That would work out great. But actually, I'm kind of concerned because you've been on the job 31 days and our transportation 2 days, and you don't have it all figured out already. I mean,
I know. I know, I had that little bit of, I had to tie up, but, I came from a school principal straight to this work, and Andrew came as a director from another school district. We apologize, Josh. I didn't mean to slack, but you know what? I'll pick it up.
Okay. All right. We'll let it go.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions for our wonderful transportation team here? And Jillian says she commits to updating the group over the email as appropriate. Our county representative, Ms. Garvey, says she's bringing back Sue Robinson. Yeah. Oh, well,
I see Jillian's hand.
Oh, Jillian, go for it.
Yeah, so we talked about the bell time study, I think the last ETC meeting, which of course was before you were here. And just to sort of reiterate two things we talked about then, I think the two main points were that one, we were concerned that the original formulation of this didn't take into account instructional need, which sort of seems like that should be an important piece of this. And the other was, and Chris is here, I think, so he might be able to speak to this better, but the small businesses and the businesses in Arlington that exist in this ecosystem to care for children before and after school need some advanced time to do their planning. And so I'm a little, I'm just wondering whether our timing works for that ecosystem that takes care of children, and want to make sure that we're appropriately plugged in to those people. And someone has their hand off. I'm hoping it's Chris,
right,
because he can say it better.
It is Chris.
So okay, so Jillian, so again, the timeline that was presented that I inherited was, we do bring this to the school board for informational on April 28th with a potential for them to act on it in May 14th. So that would be something then that decision will be made prior to the end of school year to hopefully allow for those businesses as well as our families and community to prepare for that adjustment. And then Chris is going to add to this.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, so I own a dance studio, and I talk to a lot of other business owners, martial arts and gymnastics and tutoring and all of that. And, Arlington parents really like to plan ahead. We have to have our summer camp schedule out in January, and we need to have our fall schedule out in April. So our fall schedule is under construction right this moment. I have teachers sending me back their availability for September right now. So if bell times shift in May, my business, and I'm sure several other businesses, are going to have people who have already signed up for after school activities under the assumption of their previous bell time. So I'm just concerned.
I will say, I understand the concern. I will say, just in my preliminary conversations with the vendor, and also that I'm fresh out of middle school and understanding those needs with regards to our current bell times and the way our community has adjusted. Again, that we will present both of our groups scenarios, and we have 4 right now. Again, right now the scenarios aren't, and I'm using Loudon because that's the one I looked at probably the most closely, which was to me a pretty dramatic shift. We're looking at nothing more than about 20, 25 minutes as far as the shift. So I know that still is critical when we're talking about after school activities. But this is where I will definitely encourage for everyone on this group as well. Jillian will be the voice in the group, obviously, but and especially your community to definitely add that to the engage document, because I will be working with the school and community to compile that information to share to the group so they can take that into consideration as we're making, you know, a proposal for the school board. In the end, we really want to make it the most informed proposal to the school board so we can try to capture as much as possible as far as the impact on our community. I am not judging. I'm also a parent who prepares, so I already have summer plans already set and laid for my my child. So I do understand. I do. So we're really trying to work as quickly as possible. I do also understand, though, that the lack of this role being filled during probably a crucial time where that work may have been happening previously. I know that's impacting our timeline, but we're trying to push through it, not too fast, because we really want to give time to have thoughtful conversation, but we are trying to push through it so that our community can prepare.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I just want to put out there 20 minutes is a lot. I definitely have parents picking up their kids at Fleet at 3:41, hauling took us to North Arlington, changing their kids into dance clothes and walking into class by 4:15. So they don't have 20 minutes of buffer in there. Thank you a lot.
I understand. No problem. Thank you, Chris.
I will say when I first heard the time frame of this before you joined this team, I think my exact words was, wow, okay, because it is a lot, and we have been talking about that in this committee for years now, all my time on the committee, how bell times were critical to making these buses more efficient. But that said, it is, I mean, I have my own stories of working at Langston, and we used to call it beating the X, because me and another teacher who worked at Langston had to get kids from Hoffman, Boston, and in Clarendon, the road would that lane would turn backwards, and if I didn't beat the X, it meant I was going to be late. I was not going to make it on time. So I wish you nothing but smooth sailing through this.
Hey, Josh, I think I remember we were trying to get off, you know, I think my daughter's a little ahead of yours, but trying to get that Hoffman Boston drop off and get back over to Swanson. It was quite a trip.
Yep. You just
so you all know, there were the discussion from January. I put together, separate from the minutes, into specific recommendations and themes and provided it to Kim and Dariba back in early January. So if you don't have a copy of that, I'll make sure you do.
I appreciate that, Lauren. Thank you.
And so thank you for that. Did you have any closing thoughts on that, or did that capture everything you needed to say tonight?
I think right now that captured everything I need to say. I definitely will read the notes in preparation for our conversations beginning this Friday. It just helps for me to see what has transpired up to this point, so we can go into our conversations with as much as possible. So thank you for the time, Josh. I appreciate it.
And thank you. Like, as I tell every staff member who comes on with this, while part of the job, you are still giving up time with your family, and I thank you. So next up, we have iRide. And let's see here. Who's driving that one? Lynn.
Lynn has joined us, yeah.
Hey, Lynn. Thank you for giving up time with your family for us. So thank you. You're on mute. And do you need to present anything, or are you just going to be talking?
There will be a presentation. As a matter of fact, I was saying that William Jones, our transit services manager, he will be sharing a slide deck that will give you an update on what we've seen so far and what the experience has been. It's been an exciting few weeks since we started the the pilot. And so we think you'll be very pleased with what you've seen so far. There's still more work to be done, but we got off to a good start. So I'll turn it over to William to update you on what we're seeing so far.
And William, you should be able to share your screen. You should have those rights. Let me know if something's not working.
One moment, please.
Supposing the stars align and Teams is willing. Yep, there it is.
All right, one more moment. All right. If the screen has expanded to the presentation view, you should be able to see. Good evening to each and every one of you that are in attendance on this evening. We are here to provide an update on the ART APS Student Fairless Pilot. And before I get into it, just a recap for those who are just new and just joining us for the first time. This effort is one of many efforts that the Transit Bureau within the Department of Environmental Services is undertaking as part of encouraging individuals within the county to return to transit as we are coming out of virtual mode and coming out of the pandemic. And so this pilot is one of two pilots that we're working on to encourage individuals to return to taking transit, or new individuals to take transit. And we're also looking at how we can create additional opportunities for persons to take transit within the county, which, as many of you know, has a very solid network of transit services throughout the county. And so we begin this journey back in late summer with direction of the county manager's office and the county board to look at some opportunities to encourage transit use and using funding that we receive through the American Reinvestment Act, and I probably have that wrong altogether, so my apologies. And so we went through an exercise in late summer, in the middle of the fall, and presented to the county manager and to the county board 2 pilot programs, which one of them is what we're presenting here and working with Ms. Lauren Hassel, also working with Kristen Haldeman to put this together. This is what I would like to call a new iteration of a pilot that was done by APS, working with the Career Center back in the fall of 2019. And so we've been able to build upon that. As we talked last time, we've looked at several schools. We have 6 here total that we're working with in terms of this pilot. And we were reaching a targeted audience, and the audience that we discussed were students that are going to school but use hub stops, students who are going to school that may go to one school part of the day and then go to another school in either immersion program or Montessori program part of the day, or they're going to school part of the day and going to work in terms of the students that are at Career Center. And then we're also looking at students that are not eligible for school bus transportation, but are kind of outside of the walk zone, or in the case of Kenmore Middle, the walk zone is not necessarily desirable. And so the 6 schools are listed here. We went to those schools. Our marketing outreach team went out to those schools during the month of February to distribute cards. And so you see the information here on the screen for HB Woodlawn, Career Center, Wakefield High, Washington Liberty High, Gunston, and Kenmore Middle Schools. And you see that the interest is there in terms of the amount of cards that were distributed. And as you see, we went on 2 different occasions. And in the case of Kenmore Middle, we were able to go for 3, had 3 opportunities to go with them. So a total of 465 cards were distributed during the month of February at those sites on those dates. And what we're doing is it's happening during the lunch period. And our marketing outreach teams have information to connect with the students that are eligible, thanks to the communications team on the APS side that's been able to reach out to the students and the parents and also work with the school principals to have this set up. And so progress to date, we've looked at and found that 146, now this is, I will caution, this was as of Monday. So 146 students boarded an art bus at least once, so that's 146 individual students. The ridership from the pilot totaled approximately 1,146 passenger trips, with most of the ridership from the pilot being Route 75 and Kenmore Middle School students, Career Center on Route 45, 301, and Route 41, which is a combination between HB Woodlawn and Career Center. And that was 218 riders. And you're looking at a visual from day 2 of the pilot after afternoon bell dismissal at Kenmore Middle School. And those students were waiting to board the bus, heading back towards the Arlington Mill neighborhood. So just wanted to give you a visual in terms of ridership. We were charting and looking at this on a day-to-day basis. And so you can see as we were able to make it out to the schools, just kind of the ebbs and flows and the waves, if you will, of students in the pilot and their usage. Of course, the higher peaks are for the weekdays when school is in session. And so one thing I wanted to point out now, as we're doing this pilot, there are students that have been taking transit for various reasons throughout the school year. And so we have been able to look at that and do some analysis. And so I mentioned in the previous slide that there was 1,146 students that have the ridership that's the ridership figure from the pilot. But total student ridership from February 7th is 4,784. These are students that are going to other schools using transit, whether they're how they're getting there in terms of going to and from school, or to and from, or to home from after school activities using ART. And so the student ridership as part of the pilot made up about 24% of the total student ridership on ART from the first day the pilot began. So additional progress to date, we have information that is on the ART website, arlingtontransit.com, that lays out information on the pilot for general awareness, and some of the frequently asked questions are located there as well. And as I mentioned before, in working with Ms. Lauren, we are working to continue communication to the students and parents via APS Talk. Hope I have that right. If not, my apologies. And as you see, just a photo here of a student going to pick up a card when the marketing outreach team was at HB Woodlawn during the first week of outreach. So as we're here in the month of March, we plan to go back out. Again, thanks to Ms. Lauren and working with the principals of the schools to get some another round of dates and times where the marketing outreach team can go out and distribute cards. So hopefully hopefully today, if not today, hopefully tomorrow, the communication would have made its way out to the schools and parents. I know Ms. Lauren was working on that.
Yeah, it did go out today, yeah.
Okay. And the distribution dates will be for the next 2 weeks. And hopefully you all can see those dates on the right-hand side of the slide. So we plan to go between the 7th and the 17th, except the 16th, because we understand on the 16th there's an early release date. And so we're looking forward to that. And we may, these are the dates and times that are set now for the next round of distribution, and marketing and outreach teams will be set to go back out and distribute cards to those who have not had an opportunity to receive those yet. And as you see, there's another photo here at Washington Liberty High School during the first week of distribution. As we continue to move forward, we will continue to report out progress as this process moves along. So if it's possible to return to this group in the month of May, we'll come back to you with an update, and then we'll begin, then we'll resume updates in the fall as we move forward through this pilot process and begin to work through the fair study exercise. So with that, I will close out the presentation. And before I take any questions, I will see if Ms. Rivers or if Mr. Leach want to add any remarks.
Yeah, William, I'm actually trying to answer some questions while you were talking. So,
okay, because because I can't see any questions at the moment because
right,
of the presentation.
Right. I see a question was about, do we have data on the student ridership from Metro Bus or Metro Rail? And I mentioned that we do not have that information yet. But which reminds me, William, Metro Bus, they recognize the iRide card, but it pulls the full fare instead of only pulling $1 and then obviously adding the extra $1 to it. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. But we do have access to that information, so we'll begin to work with the team and able to determine what the usage is, or what has been there.
I'll just kind of pull out the questions as we're talking here. A question was about, we noted that we would use 800 cards, that 800 would be available at first. And do we have all 2,400 cards now? Will there be distribution of cards in the fall? We will continue, yes, we will continue to distribute. But what we're doing is looking at the experience of the communications go out, we go to the schools, and so we're doing not a little bit, but we're releasing more cards as we go to those schools. So we haven't run out yet, and we think it might be a little while, but we will continue to distribute, but we want to make sure that we get as many out as possible. Also understanding that there may be some who may just not participate, and we will be monitoring the experience and the students that we do get as a part of the pilot, but we will continue to distribute the cards. And capacity on the art buses. So I'll shoot that over to you, William.
Okay. So depending on so we have, not to get into too technical, we have 3 bus types. And so during what had been considered traditional rush hour, there is the possibility of having seated load and standing load. And so if we look at the largest bus, we can carry about 50 people. That's seating and standing together. And so that's something that we monitor in terms of service. For the most part, we have not had situations where buses have reached that max capacity. Bus Operations Division does monitor and let us know if we have those types of scenarios taking place.
And I'll just also add to that, William, as as a lot of offices are starting to request people return to offices or return to in-person, that we will start to monitor even closely. I think right now, what we've seen so far, the ART 75 has been pretty full, particularly when it gets to Kenmore, and we will continue to monitor that as well. But also, understanding the capacity issues overall that we have with regards to the number of buses that we have. So that's the whole point of the pilot, is to look at what the experience is and to obviously keep our eyes on the capacity, and particularly now with people returning back to the offices.
Lynn, the only other thing I would add, just to round out the discussion, is the value of the iRide card is that we can actually track and report by route, by school, and so we can actually see which routes are receiving more passengers due to the pilot. We can pull time of day. So I think it really will provide some valuable data to basically help us with the program going into the fall.
I would just add from, I'm the contact person for questions from the schools, and most of the questions have only been, I missed the distribution date, when can I pick up my card? Or why doesn't Swanson get them? Or why doesn't Langston get them? So it's been really positive, and if anything, just greater demand, maybe not necessarily in the people that are eligible right now, but very, very good, very well received across the board.
Yeah, may I speak, please?
Yeah, Janet, go ahead and ask your question. We'll make this the last one because we have to move to the next section. And then if also if William and if you could try to address that issue in the chat from Jillian, we'll make these our last two.
Okay. First of all, thank you for doing this, William. And I called the iRide about a month ago when we have so many students and 7 roads south that they were leaving, standing on the bus stops, and then you increased another, you added another bus to pick up students. But then the question is now, these cards, I seen on your report, Washington Liberty is showing only 18 students, they got the cards, and Kenmore got 66. So is it a way that we can get that information and distribute to parents? Because what I get from parents is, where can my son or my daughter get the card? So and I want to be able for them to get the card. Sometimes the students, especially on middle schools, they don't pay attention to announcements, or they don't get the opportunity to get the card. So it is very important, this type of communication that needs to be, sending to parents also. I do send one time, but then parents later on call me and saying, and I didn't know all the details on this.
So just to clarify, it does go out to School Talk to the families of the eligible students in English and Spanish. So it did go out to everyone. We went through the lists of schools of the students who are in the option programs, the eligible students, and provided that list to School and Community Relations to send only to those families. So that was step 1. Step 2 is that the schools then chose the dates. Now, W&L happened to choose 2 dates the first round, but they didn't actively promote it within the school as much as other schools did. So I think that's the issue there. And I've been encouraging them to schedule a second date for the second round, and I haven't heard back from them yet. So so that I think is more just isolated with W&L, because everyone else got the information through the parents or the families, as well as through the schools. And then I think Dave can attest to doing announcements and reminders and so on in school that made it more widely known.
Yeah, because sometimes parents, you can send emails, but for certain, areas that emails are not working properly, for a parent to see the information. So for that reason, we are the second, type of communication for parents.
All right. Thank you for that, Janet, I appreciate, and I always appreciate your advocacy, and you are absolutely right. More cards in more hands is how we have to be. And Lynn responded back to Jillian's question in the chat. So
yeah, I
Jillian,
appreciate that. I've been very supportive and really welcome all your work on this. It's clear you guys have done a lot and really appreciate it. Really appreciate you guys being responsive to questions from the communities and getting the communications out there. I've gotten questions about some things, which I've obviously passed them on to you, but I've also gotten some teachers and some social workers come, sort of reach out to me to say, we have these kids, they are low income, they are taking art right now, they're taking transit right now. They went to the table and they were told you're not eligible based on where you live. So if there's any way, I see that you guys had about half, take up about half the number of available passes in February. So if there's any way to even just get the limited number of cards into the hands of social workers in the schools, I think that would go a long way to easing some stress in the lives of certain kids.
well, thank you. As this is an evolving process. So we'll move now to the coordinated countywide transportation safety campaign. Who's up for this one?
Hi, it's Christine Baker.
Hey, Christine, and you
Nate.
are going to do a twofer for us tonight, right?
Yeah. There's the Vision Zero update item, but I'm actually going to share my screen, so I figure if we can just show it all at once, that's probably easiest.
Let me know if it won't let you. Oh, I see yours coming up right now.
Perfect.
Oh, it's starting to my screen is slow. Yep, I see your Vision Zero.
Perfect. So the things we'll go over today are the critical crash mitigation campaign. And then I wanted to give an update on the Vision Zero annual safety feedback form that launched this week. And then give an update on the school slow zones implementation and what to expect for the timeline. So the critical crash mitigation campaign was initiated by the Vision Zero team to address the biggest issues we're seeing in our critical crashes. And so critical crashes are crashes that result in a severe outcome or a severe injury or a fatality. So we have about 60 some of those per year. And we really wanted to figure out, what were some common factors across these types of crashes. And what we see are they often involve speeding, pedestrians, alcohol is a very big factor in that. It can include bikes, and then left turns is another really big factor. So those were the 5 areas where we opted to focus in on for this critical crash mitigation campaign to launch this spring in tandem with the annual safety feedback form, which I'll talk about in a minute. So what you see on the right hand of your screen is one of the kind of all-encompassing flyers that shows, okay, these are the 5 ways that you can make our roads safer. And it looks at the speed, the pedestrians, the don't drink and drive, passing bikes steadily, and take your time turning left. And so we spent a lot of time with a consultant who helped us kind of think about all the different data factors that we had and the real messages that we wanted to bring to the community. And this is really what it boiled down to. So this is one material that tries to show it all in one, which I know is a little busy, but we actually have, we're working on a poster for each of these specific areas that really highlights the message for each target area. So that means slow down to save lives, expect people, stop for pedestrians, plan ahead, don't drink and drive, give 3 feet of space, pass bikes steadily, and take your time turning left. So that's where we really want the takeaways for people to be. And if people take this to heart and incorporate it into their daily movement, it can really go a long way. So these materials will be printed out in postcard size. So once we have the individual posters for each of the topic areas, We'll have postcards printed, and they'll be used at all pop-up events and similar events. If we have a booth somewhere, we'll be able to hand those out as a great reminder for folks. And then we'll also have them sized for each social media platform. So that way we can post, you can post, our partners can all post these materials to kind of help send that message. And that can be used, anytime. So we'll be launching these materials this month, as we have a lot of pop-up events planned. And we're planning to have a big presence as we push the annual safety feedback form, but then they also are intended to be evergreen. So we can use these materials moving forward throughout the rest of the year and even into next year. And, they can evolve over time as we see our crash trends evolve over time. But the intent is for them to be, used in any kind of setting to be able to send a message. Jillian?
Yeah, just a note on the bike stuff. The law in Virginia has actually changed lanes to pass, not 3 feet anymore. It changed last summer. So that, I don't know if there's time to update it, but change lanes to pass would be better than 3 feet. And
yeah, we
talked
about that. You don't always have another lane that you can change it to.
Then you can't pass. That's the way the law works.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. We can rework that language. Thank you.
Yeah, or I mean, I guess you're saying there's like on unmarked streets where there's no lane markings. That's true. Then it would be 3 feet. But I think, yeah. But
we know the 3 feet, has been something that we've really wanted to push, and I think we'll talk about the best way to really have that stick with people. We want the message to be something that people can understand really easily and stick with. So, yeah, right. I think change lanes could also work, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah, or maybe and pass bikes steadily is like, I don't care if you're going steadily 35 miles an hour.
We had a lot of
right?
talk
It's
about
like,
that too. It's like you don't want them to slow down too much, and it was like slow and steady. Yeah. I can follow up with you and talk about the language.
Yeah, thank you. But this is great. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, because we want to make sure we have it right before we print everything. But yeah, so this is the main gist. I'm sorry I don't have the finalized materials. We've had, as I mentioned, a lot of discussion internally. We've had folks at Arlington Transportation Partners helping us with this. And we're also going to be looking at repurposing some of the older videos that we've done with the PAL campaign as part of this information push. So we'll be launching everything pretty soon, but I didn't have the finalized materials to bring to you today, and I'll be happy to share those once we do have them. But any other thoughts or questions?
Oh, it's exciting to see these things come together. So thank you. Is the next part right after this?
Yeah. So I also just wanted to talk about the annual safety feedback form. And this is something that was recommended in the action plan. And it's a way to continuously engage with the community about, what safety needs are people experiencing? What can we do to help address that through the Vision Zero program? So we've developed a 9-question feedback form that is really simple, and then there's a bunch of optional demographic questions. But the intent of having it short is to not scare people away. We want, if you've worked in survey work before, the shorter the survey is, the higher the response rate's going to be. So we wanted to ask a lot of questions. We landed on 9. And we're going to ask the same questions year after year, because this is intended to be a benchmark survey. So it's a way to track our progress over time. And it's going to provide this yearly check-in to learn about the safety challenges people experience. And it really helps to inform staff, kind of like, where are we doing well? Where do we need to work on? Where have we seen things improve over time versus where maybe have we seen a decline over time in the way, in the perceived safety that people are experiencing. So the form is going to be open now through March 29th. So we have a month long. plan of different engagement activities, and we'll be pushing on different platforms throughout the month. But the results will be published in the Vision Zero Year One annual report, which will come out in May. And then we'll incorporate all the feedback that we get into the Vision Zero Year Two programming. So our Vision Zero year starts in May and ends in May because that's when we adopted the plan. So Year Two will start in May, and we'll start to use that feedback to prioritize our needs moving forward. And then last but not least, we're working on transportation safety equity analysis, which was another action item in the action plan. We've been working really hard on pulling data together, researching, understanding more about transportation safety equity needs. And this information that we get from the safety feedback form is really going to feed into that. And that's why we're also planning a lot of engagement with areas that we don't always hear from. So in terms of the communications activities for the annual safety feedback form, we'll be doing e-blasts through county listservs, social media channels, and posting everything to the county website. We'll also have lots of lawn signs out. I think we have over 100 throughout the county, and they're all in public locations. I saw one on my way to drop my son off at daycare today, so you should be seeing them throughout the county. They are in both English and Spanish. We've also mailed postcards to 15,000 houses in equity emphasis areas, and those are the MWCOG identified equity emphasis areas. And then we also have been working with our partners like APS is a huge partner, and then AZPD, our interdepartmental stakeholders group, our external stakeholders group, to help get the word out. And then for actual engagement, really kind of getting into the community, we have 5 pop-up events planned, all located in equity emphasis areas. We'll have bilingual staff there and giveaways. And we're going to mimic the questions that we have on our survey in the events at the pop-up. So that way we can take any information we get and put it directly back into it kind of translates directly to the feedback form responses. And then we have 3 focus groups planned with community members who we've identified in our data analysis as being disproportionately impacted by traffic crashes. And so that'll be a focus group with older adults, a focus group with people with disabilities, and a focus group with our Black and African American community. So that's the way we can actually have conversations and learn a lot more in detail about personal experiences to help us inform all of our safety work. And then we also will have library kiosks at the Central Library and Columbia Pike Library with feedback forms in English and Spanish that could be mailed in. So that's an option for anyone who might not have access to a computer, but they'll be available at the library for pickup right by the front desk, and they can mail those responses in, and we'll count them with the online survey form. And the survey form is available, feedback form. It's not a statistically significant survey, but that will be available in English, Spanish, Amharic, Arabic, Mongolian, and Chinese. So those were some of the predominant language needs in Arlington. So that's our plan. And as I mentioned, we'll be integrating some of those critical crash materials in our pop-up events and in our information pushes. So you'll be starting to see all this kind of come together as we just try to really push the word out over the next month. And then last, I was going to cover the school slow zones really briefly. All of the speed limit signs are in place at the 13 schools where we have added 20-mile-per-hour school slow zones. And then we also are marking on the pavement 20 miles per hour. So you may have seen it in a couple locations throughout the county. It's just a way to reinforce the speed limit in a way that drivers really see. Like if you're driving and you see something painted on the road, you're going to know, okay, the speed limit's 20 miles per hour, and that's a change. So some of those are installed, some are delayed because we're repaving those roads this year. So we'll go back in and install the markings once the roads have been repaved to avoid having to do it multiple times. So in March, we'll be sharing messaging in some new flyers with example photos. Just, I think it always helps to see it on the ground so people can look at the flyer and be like, oh, I drive there every day. And that will help kind of get the word out, make sure people are educated on, this is a big change, the speed limits are lower. And then we'll also be collecting speed data in March. Then in April, working with ACPD, we'll be implementing speed feedback signs and variable messaging signs, especially at locations where we see that the speeds haven't decreased much. And that is going to run throughout the month, really be another strong informational push, using those flyers that came out in March as well to just reiterate the importance of driving slow around schools, especially in these areas where we have these new speed limits. And then in May, we'll plan to host community engagement to collect feedback on how the slow zones are operating. So that'll be when we really need your help to get the word out to APS, get feedback from folks. And we might end up collecting additional speed data if we want to see, how things have changed. Because we collected before data, we'll have another data collection in March, and then we might have another one just to see how behavior changes over time. And then as we move into summer, fall, we'll take all the information from the community feedback and from that speed data we collect and kind of synthesize what we heard and use those findings to finalize our school zone guidelines and develop a plan for doing them at all the schools in the county beyond just the 13 demonstration areas. Any questions on that?
Thank you for that, Christine.
No problem. So yeah, the
I saw
bottom.
the signs.
Oh.
There are days I drop my, we have one car and I'll drop my wife off at school if the weather's kind of cold on my way to my school. And I was driving into Hoffman, Boston. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. There's those 20 signs and like, oh, and look, there's these nicer crosswalk stripes. It was good stuff. So I'm liking it. To my TE&O people on here, it was lovely to see.
Awesome. That's great. So yeah, the bottom line is if you all can help share messaging about the annual safety feedback form, that would be huge over the next month. And I'll be working with Lauren to get that out through APS channels. And then, we will look for your help with messaging, education, and sharing feedback on those school slow zones as we roll them out throughout the spring.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving us time.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks for being with us tonight. Next up is the APS budget for 2023. Some people not everyone might have the recreational activity I do of reading the entire 400-page document. So who is driving this one for us, Lauren?
Renee was going to just, there's not a whole lot there, but Renee, are you prepared to do that?
So let me unmute. So yes, the budget, and I did see Josh there that evening. The budget was previewed by Dr. Duran last Thursday evening, and there actually was a work session following. The bulk of our work, and when I say our work, that impacts what we do through facilities and instruction and what impacts this committee specifically is in priority 4. And if you've had a chance to preview the superintendent's presentation, you'll see that this year the budget was broken into 4 priorities wrapped around our strategic goal as a district. So priority 4, we're really looking at operational efficiency. And I believe the one specific budget item with regards to transportation is there is a budget item in there for transportation communication needs. This is something that has been placed to hopefully be able to fund equipment that will allow parents to track the bus and their location. So especially when, unfortunately we have the delays, if the bus is running behind or if there was a delay due to weather, things of that nature. So that is one of the pieces that are in there. The budget itself, our 3 focus areas this year. We say it 3 times: compensation, 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 as well as numeracy and literacy. So those, but we also did wrap in other aspects of the work as related to the strategic plan. So that is the general. And Lauren, forgive me, I wasn't sure if there was a specific question or need from the committee.
Yeah, really just to give an update on what was covered, and we planned for this before before it was presented. So probably don't need as much time as we allowed for it. So that's great. Thank you.
Not a problem.
It was a good, it was a good year for transportation, and I saw that in the budget of the. I think it's called "Where's My Bus" is the name of it.
Where's My Bus?
And I think many years ago we had tried to get this going. I remember a presentation to this committee, and then it abruptly stopped. So we are sending all the good mojo your way that it goes, that it happens this time. I am sure "Where's My Bus" is probably a great title when people call transportation, and that's probably exactly the first 3 words out of everybody's mouth. So
absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if you need anything from our committee in the future related to that work, we are already on record for being supportive of technology that makes everyone's life easier.
Phenomenal. So, thank you, guys.
We are doing well here. The Nellie Custis and Military Road roundabout pilot. Lauren, who's taking that one?
Way, perhaps.
Okay. Let me do this way. Would you be willing to defer for a minute, because then that way we can have you roll straight into the Kenmore Trail connection. You can just do you can do a twofer.
Actually, the Kenmore one will be Valerie.
Then go ahead.
So yeah. And also, I will say, actually, the roundabout pilot is also a joint effort between Valerie's Bureau, the Transportation Planning and the Capital Project Management, and also TNO. So it's actually a joint effort. I will just say we have received, we did after study, as we promised when we do all the before and after, all the pilot. We did after study, and we collected the drivers' yielding behavior towards other traffic, and also especially towards pedestrian and bicycle. And we see a significant amount of increase on yielding rates, which is what we sort of anticipated for the roundabout setup. So that was a very pleasing result. But we are actually going to collect yet another round, because that one was collected right after the implementation, and we want to see after the traffic gets settled, can we get a different result? And also, we're thinking about tweaking the data collection timing to coincide with the peak pedestrian usage, for example, when kids are walking to school. So we're going to try to do better on a second round of data collection. I have had the pleasure of actually seeing a drone video footage. Valerie, I don't know if there's any ways those video footage maybe one day can be shared with a wider group of people. I will just say it is a beauty to watch from the bird eye view, see how the cars slow down and navigate through the roundabout and across. You actually don't get that sense if you're at the driver's level, but when you look from the top down, it's really behaving as we want it to. So right now the pilot will still stay there. I know we communicated with the public. It's going to be 8 to 12 months long, which would bring us to somewhere in the summertime. And we're thinking when we take the pilot out, the temporary setup out, we want to have that hopefully happening in the summer, so it has the least impact on kids, changing behavior pattern and all that. The reason the pilot will come out is because that would give way to the actual capital project to move in and, move forward. So that's about how much I have to update. I know, Lauren, you have provided some information about schools having positive feedback about using the pilot and all that. And we continue to encourage schools to give us feedback, especially when the weather starts to get better, more people may choose to walk. Any feedback will be very helpful.
Yeah, yes, that's right. We spoke with Ellen Smith at Dorothyham Middle School and some crossing guards, as well as just some different families have been very positive about it. So,
yeah, thank you. And Valerie, do you have anything to add to that? Because I know this is a part of the capital project.
Yes, this is we're using this to help determine what that final solution will be for that intersection. So no, thank you for giving the overview. I will look into how we can share that drone footage. I think it's quite large, that file, but I will work with the project manager to see if we can get some kind of a reduced, more transmittable version that we could share with others. But it's a great tool. I hope we can do more of that as we see our projects and are testing them out. So
yeah.
So thanks.
Perhaps it could get uploaded to YouTube or something like that, and that way it'd be a much more shareable item. Because I think Arlington County wants to promote it in the future. It could be one of the files that they keep in their YouTube bank.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. We'll work with our communications team. Thanks.
So we covered Vision Zero. So we have Safe Routes to School, or was that covered within the other? And then we have TDM.
I have a couple quick updates for Safe Routes to School.
Okay.
That aren't related to other things we've talked about.
Okay.
Every year we do a student travel tally in the fall. This has happened now since 2013. So except for last year when there were no students to count, it's a way for students to report how they are getting to and from school on 2 days during a 2-week period, but usually it runs a little longer by the time we get input from all the different schools. Ultimately, when all the data is uploaded, we get nice reports that we can share. So the 2021 data has been uploaded in December and is now available that I can download and put it into school-specific reports or APS-wide report that'll break down the walk, bike, drive, bus, other transit, all the different modes, and then other variables like day of the week and weather and so on. That's the good news. So by the next meeting or before then, I could have some of that available to share. The not so good news is that the data center, which is a national clearinghouse in North Carolina that's part of the Safe Routes program, was not funded. So effective March 31st, they are shutting down, which means all of the records and reports and data that they have amassed for not just for us, but for Safe Routes programs and other similar programs around the country will not be accessible. So I am going to have to download and archive 8 years worth of reports. So I'll be doing that, but we'll have it somewhere. I have to talk to somebody who knows the best way to do this so that it's in a safe place. And hopefully, going forward, when we need to pull it up, we'll have it available to us. And maybe there will be funding in the future that this could start up again, because it's an important part of what we do, working with the county and providing this kind of data. We'll continue collecting it, but we just won't have the data center as our backup. And in other news, the Crossing Guard Appreciation Week was the second week of February, and it's a nice feel-good story that hits at a good time of year. We had a most outstanding crossing guard winner for the state of Virginia again this year. That's 7 years in a row, and we were able to celebrate her, Shashu Jabre, at she actually covers 2 schools, Fleet as well as Long Branch, and we had a nice turnout from the police and the school and just APS dignitaries like Renee were there on her 5th day of work maybe. But we also, on the more serious side of the crossing guard world, we're very lucky to know or to now have 4 new crossing guards who are hired since the beginning of the school year. We had 19. Now they're up to 23. So that's covering additional posts. So we have 36 posts covered. It's still not as many as we had 2 years ago, but it's helpful. And we every day I get updates on whether anyone's called out or coverage or different, the communications are very constant between the crossing guard unit and me, so that we can alert principals, who can then alert their families and students when there is a crossing guard outage. So it's working quite well, and things are getting better. And we're going to be supporting the Vision Zero outreach and around the feedback form in the coming weeks, along with gathering some other parent and caregiver information from some of our Title I schools, and finding out how they're getting to and from school and what support they're providing their students to walk and bike. So that's what I've got. Any questions?
I will just take my position as chair to say to everyone who is on here who might be in a financial position with either the county or the schools to make the crossing guard positions more attractive. That is something that we are all in desperate need of, to get these. Because how many positions were we at pre-pandemic?
26, yeah.
26, okay. And we're at 23, you
We're
said?
at 23 now. We were at 19 in August, okay. So that's it takes a
not,
while,
yeah.
but we're getting there.
Okay. So that's what I have on that one. Jillian did ask in the chat who funds that national data center. Is there a realistic hope it will come back, or not really?
Not really. It was federally funded, I believe. I don't know all the details. I know that they're trying to get funding. It may shut down and come back, but it's not looking so good for it to stay funded or to get some funding at the last minute.
All right, and who's going to drive TDM here?
Zara, no Zara, and Eric.
Maybe that'll happen next time.
Yeah, we may have to move along.
We'll bump that. We'll bump that to May. We'll get a report in May on TDM. The Kenmore Connector Trail looks like our next one here. Who's driving that one?
Hey. Right.
And
hello.
Valerie, do you
I
need to share your screen?
No, I'm just going to be talking about this. I was
Okay.
having trouble operating my toggles though. Hey, everybody. Yeah, so Lauren forwarded, brought to our attention, Chris. Hey, Chris, I see Chris on the slide, on the call. The articles recently written in support of the Kenmore Connector Trail. Was telling Lauren recently and the JCTC, this is great connection, important connection to make. I don't think it's quite as simple as Chris portrayed in the article, though. I look at that in Street View, and we do have a number of complicating features there that we would need to look into further. So as I mentioned, when we spoke with JCTC, this is something, we can put into our proposed CIP to get a study in the pipeline so that we can really drill into it and see what's possible. But, between utilities and some topography and other challenges, I don't think it's quite that simple, but yeah, we'll work it into the pipeline for a study. I would caution we can't start that until after FY23 because our work plan for our engineering and planning studies is pretty full for FY23. So we will work it in after that and kind of weigh that with other safety priorities and so forth. But yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention, and we'll study it. I heard that the Kenmore principal was on the line, I think at the intro. So, and I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but if anyone has other comments, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
It looks like Dave is still on. There he is.
There you go. Hi.
Hi. So just if you can refresh my memory for the connector, wasn't it on the north side of 50?
I believe what the proposal, and this is shown in our master transportation plan, is a proposed trail connection on the west side of Carlin Springs Road from Kenmore going under 50, connecting up to around Kensington. That's the extent of it. So it would be, it looks like the proposal is a trail connecting on that west side of Carlin Springs.
Yeah, I mean, anything that can help with our, student flow is welcomed. We do have there's longstanding concern. I don't want to, throw it sideways, but there is a longstanding concern with walking on the south side from the Greenbrier neighborhood up. And somebody mentioned earlier, I think the art folks mentioned how difficult it, it might be within the 1.5 miles, but it really is a significant incline and decline that they have to go through. We've been lucky in the COVID, well, not lucky, but it's just one of the things with COVID is we didn't get calls from the neighbors about kids walking, and we do have a lot of kids now who are students who are now using the art bus. So, I mean, it would be great to have the expanded walking on the west side, which we like to call the best side of the county. But I do want to just plug advocacy though for also looking at how kids travel on the south, and anything that we can do with Carlin Springs. I mean, Carlin Springs has been a big topic. And last thing, real quick, I had to go to 7-Eleven today, and we had to shut down snack after school at 7-Eleven because we again, we out of practice with COVID, and kids have been running across Carlin Springs, which is extremely dangerous. So we're going to block the tractor, which is them going, unaccompanied to 7-Eleven. But basically, anything that we can do to help with pedestrian flow on that side of town is welcomed.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, can I say something on that? We have a trail that connects 7 roads to behind Campbell Elementary, and it goes to Carlin Springs. So we contemplated many times to make it better and safer area for kids to use it. But we also have problems with the neighbors living in that area that they don't want our kids walking on those trails. So I don't understand where this trail will connect it, but you have to start looking on something to do with the roads at Carlin Springs or the trails that they will connect it and help connect these students. And the buses every year is getting, smaller, or it's too full for the kids to ride to school. So we need to think about, moving forward, how we're gonna deal with this problem. And then, as you know, Carlin Springs is the busiest road. Some, pedestrians are not safe in that road. And the other day I was driving, going to Route 50, and I was on the left side when kids are dismissed from Kenmore, and one kid was pushed into the road. And luckily I was driving 5 miles per hour, then to stop. And then otherwise it would be a different case here. So we need to improve that street. I've been saying for years. So please, we need to be more proactive on Carlin Springs and the routes to connect to Kenmore and Carlin Spring Elementary and Campbell. Thank you.
Thanks.
Jillian, did you want to throw in on this one?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to echo what Jana said. And for those that may not have followed, I posted Chris's blog post on the trail in the chat. But I think, it's great to build new stuff. We have asphalt down right now, and we could. Right now, what I'm hearing is that the county is going to leave the space allocated the way it is, which is, leaving very little space allocated to people walking. And then study providing more space for people walking by adding to the total amount of space there is. Another option would be to take the total amount of space there is and reallocate it and study whether to add more space to be able to go back to the allocation we have now. In other words, we could have a road diet on Carlin Springs. The numbers actually support a road diet on Carlin Springs. 1 lane in each direction, center turn lane. It would address the issues that we saw with the first pilot we had on Carlin Springs. And it would leave room for a walking trail, sort of a bi-directional walking trail that would connect not only from the WNOD trail to Kenmore, but also from Kenmore down to Columbia Pike. It might have to change sides of the street. You know, more things might have to be done. But I think there are some things that if we really want to prioritize this, if we want to be serious about safety, and if we want to specifically be serious about the safety of our students, we can say we will immediately give the space to our students and we'll study finding more space for cars. And I just hope that's on the table, that we can have an honest discussion about that.
Well, I do want to point out that what you're saying, even, you know, the study would look at that as well, reallocating space. That requires study as well. I mean, this section is in a primary transit route as well. We have other pieces of the puzzle that we would have to study as well. So I just want to let you know that when I say study, it is also looking at that. It doesn't necessarily mean the outcome is going to be a big, massive, you know, project. It could be much more easily achievable. However, I do think we have some sticky parts that we would really have to drill into.
So we
already did a pilot project without studies. What I'm saying is pilot projects without study are possible, and we've identified the safety need.
Wei, did you want to weigh in on this one? Then we'll have to move on to our last topic, because I want to make sure everything gets a piece tonight.
Yeah, I'll be real quick, Josh. Just two items. One is the pilot study wasn't done without study. We did a very quick analysis looking at the volume with COVID reduction. And even with the COVID reduction back then, the volume was really on the verge of busting the bank of a road diet. We decided to give it a go, partially because of the school hybrid operation, which, you know, are anticipating more kids walking. So that was a really unique situation to allow us to do that pilot. So we really don't do pilot without thinking through. So it's not like we just throw it in there. That's the first point. And the second point is we collected a lot of feedback and usage during the pilot. It is actually pretty unanimous from the school that's boarding that, well, I should say mostly from Campbell, that it has created both operational and also safety concern for the school. So it's really not like, you know, if it's a good result, we probably would have made it longer or something. So part of the nature of pilot, and I'm really proud of Arlingtonians putting up on that, is sometimes a pilot will tell us that the things we want didn't work. And I think it takes a lot of really a good spirit and intelligence to understand that we tolerate that type. And I really say this committee and also, you know, both of our board gave us a lot of support, letting us fail some of the pilot. I wouldn't say fail. We learned a lot from it. We learned a lot of lessons, which make us more knowledgeable next time when we introduce more new stuff.
Thank you for all of this. Yeah, thank you for all of this. I remember when we first looked at the first study of Carlin Springs way back, it's been what, 5-6 years now? I saw a comparison of when we looked like at a road transit study, and I remember tracking down the study done on the Strip in Las Vegas. And when I found the person who actually did that for Clark County, Nevada, and he asked me, well, where are you working on? And he said, and I said, Carlin Springs Road in Arlington. And the person who was managing the Strip in Las Vegas looked at me and said, good luck with that one, because he had actually lived in Arlington. So last one of the night is the follow-up from Washington Boulevard and Quincy Street. Who's going to do that one for us?
I'm going to do this one. So this one, I remember the sort of the raised concern from the parent is about a larger vehicle hopping the corner of the curb. My team also took a look at the location, and we all know because of the ed center construction, there's more heavy vehicle going through that area. There are some markings that are, in worse shape than we would like to see. So we're actually trying to coordinate with the completion of the school project and see when we can sort of refresh some of the markings that we've seen, including finishing up the last piece of the North Quincy of the bike lane setup. So that one, I remember we had a discussion. I will have to caution though, there were some ideas about, can we further restrict the turning of the curb, maybe using bollard or something. That's not a location where there's too much room because the intersection is slightly skewed and the corner is already pretty tight. And there, I believe there's a bus stop right around the corner on Quincy. So we will look into that when we modify the marking for the intersection and look for opportunities to use markings to give more guidance. I don't see too much room for significant change at this point, though. So I don't have any very specific follow-up except to say we're going to look at it during the marking season.
Thank you, Hui, for that update. I appreciate it. To this committee, one of my particular enjoyments is these conversations of particular intersections in Arlington. And I also, to the TNO staff, if you guys have any intersections you'd like us to discuss in this committee, and to the members of the committee, if you've got any you'd like to see, shoot me an email. If you shoot me an email of 100 of them, it's going to be long past this committee that we would get to them. So if you had one or two you had a particular interest in seeing, I never like to drop anything on Hui and say, hey, what do you think about this, potentially multi-billion-dollar project? I like to give her a few weeks to ponder stuff so that we are better invested in each other's time. With that, I want to start by thanking everyone, or end here by thanking everyone on the committee for their work, whether you are paid staff or volunteers to this. We all gave up something to be here tonight, and I appreciate that. So with that, I see Jillian suggesting, yes. Yeah, I see 50 in Manchester.
So 2 questions in the chat. Well, first, just to clarify with Hui, you mentioned markings. We talked about this last time, how there was that the DS was planning to come back to reconsider or to sort of finalize the plan on Quincy Street north of Washington Boulevard, and that was going to be done when the Ed Center was done and the markings were done for the Ed Center. Is that now, or were the markings you talk about just sort of interim before that happens?
I anticipate us doing the marking after the Ed Center construction is finished, because it's really, you put fresh stuff in with the construction trucks, and just take 1-2 months, it will all worn off. So we will do it after.
So the engagement about the protected bike lane is going to happen soon?
That one, I need to check back with the team, because I remember we had extensive engagement that included that section, but we said we're not going to do it until later. But I remember the design plan. I recall seeing the design plan and everything. Unless there's significant change to that design plan, let me check with the team if there's any plan to re-engage.
Yeah, that was our understanding, is that they just plans were made for North and then we paused it because it wasn't getting done anyway. And Dennis even said last meeting that the plan was to re-engage on north of Washington. So I think that what he said about re-engaging was consistent with my recollection. And I just suggested as an intersection 50 in Manchester.
Yes. So I'll collect some ideas, and then we'll get with Hui, and we'll see which would be the next one to go with. Oh, yes, Hui?
Actually, since the 50 in Manchester, I can give you all an update. So VDOT has worked with county. They conducted a safety study of that intersection. It's one of their program called STARS. Don't ask me, what they stand for, but it's a safety study. They actually had, I think, more than 3 rounds of public engagement and communication. We actually, they finalized their recommendation just last week. The recommendation includes some short-term and midterm measures. The short-term measure would change the signal operation to what we call split phase. So basically, you will hold the Route 50 traffic, let the North Manchester go, and then let the South Manchester go. So they will not be concurrently giving green to the side street. That is a way to eliminate the left turn conflict with pedestrian. So that's the benefit. It's considered as a safety improvement. The downside of that kind of operation is when you add a little bit more time to the side street because you're now operating them on the split phase. So the main road gonna wait a little longer. Another thing is pedestrian will have to choose which side they walk, because if the left turn and the through traffic of one leg is going, the left turn is protected. At that point, the pedestrian on that side does not have the right of way. The pedestrian has a right of way on the other side of the road. So there is some learning, I will say behavior learning, like, if I want to cross, I really need to wait for the green for my leg, even if there's a green going on. So we will do some of the sort of information pushing out to try to do that. The midterm measurement, there's also some additional marking, marking the lane usage on the ground a little bit ahead of time so people can plan which lane they stay with and all that. The midterm project recommended by VDOT is to extend the left turn bay on Arlington Boulevard going westbound. That bay at current operation is pretty much already at or sometimes over capacity, meaning the vehicles waiting for left turn are spilling into the through lanes. With the split operation, it is anticipated that more cars will be, holding in that bay and waiting, so there could be a more severe spillover operation. What we have committed to is we're going to monitor the condition, see if it's going to get to too bad of a degree, not really considering capacity, but mostly consider when people get hold off and they start to change lane, you could actually have crashes among vehicles. So we're going to monitor the condition, and the county is working with VDOT trying to look for funding opportunity for that turn bay extension. So basically, VDOT has already concluded. I believe they will soon post their final recommendation and everything on their website. There's a project website on the VDOT study webpage.
Well, thank you for that way. And there's a couple of questions. Maybe I think we're gonna have to hold those till May unless you two want to talk offline about this. But thank you for all this. Let's see if you've got something in May, we can add that to the agenda.
Yeah, we can do some follow-up in May. I don't want to make everyone too late. It's already 9.
Yes, so thank you all. With that, a motion to adjourn, and I will see you all in May.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.